Here's the problem. Most people wake up every day and they do the same thing they did yesterday. It's the same routine, the same tasks, same fires to put out, and then weeks turn into months and months turn into years, and they look up and they realize they're in the exact same place they were 3 years ago. Not because they weren't busy, they were incredibly busy, but busy doing what? When you don't have clarity on where you're going, every day feels productive, but nothing actually moves. You're running on a treadmill. You're shiny object syndrome, reacting to this, reacting to that. You're checking boxes that don't connect to anything bigger. And the worst part is you don't even notice it's happening until you're deep into it. The fix isn't working harder, it's knowing where you're headed so that the work you're doing today actually gets you there. When you have a clear picture of your future, on who you're becoming, what your business looks like, what your life looks like, suddenly you can look at your week and ask, does this actually matter? Is this moving me toward what I really want? Or is it just keeping you where you are? That's what the system I'm about to show you here does. It gives you clarity on the direction of your future so you can move with intention in the present. I want to walk you through something that is a planning system that has changed my life, changed my business. It's allowed me to build a life and business that even 5 years ago I would dream about, but definitely 10 years ago was absolute dream come true. Why? Because I have learned how to point to something in the future that doesn't seem possible and then think through how to make it real. The full picture from vision all the way down to what you're doing on a random Wednesday. This is a video high-level overview, and in some of the upcoming videos, I'm going to unpack each piece one at a time so you can actually use them. But right now, I want you to see how this all connects. First one is called Future News Story. Future News Story is allowing yourself to dream without limits. Dream it. Write it as if it has already happened. Everything on your business side and personal side should be in here. So it's almost like a reporter interviewed you and is writing as if it has already happened. You know, doing these many events, this type of revenue. This is one of the big growth things that have happened that 3 years before we set the craft, made it real. So use AI, feel free to use ChatGPT, feel free to use Claude, and even ask the AI to prompt you. You know, if I'm being interviewed for my ideal future, ask me things that might be important here. Future news story, you define it. And then from the future news story, we want to then take the pieces of the news story and trickle it down into a focus catalyst. Now, a focus catalyst is a multi-purpose tool, but we're going to use it as a 3-year goal clarifier. So from your future news story, if you say things like, I'm playing tennis for fitness, my eating has changed in this way, you know, Daniel's eating has changed, the business has gotten or doubled events or tripled events, all of those individual success outcomes, we pull them down into our what wins when. So it could be 8 business targets, 8 personal life targets. It could be 10 and 10. It could be 6 and 9. There's technically 20 spaces inside of the focus catalyst, and we do this kind of like a 3-year map. So now we've gone from concept into clarifying all the projects within the 3-year. Then we have an execution catalyst where we, based on where we want to be in 3 years, what do we want to do in the next 12 months? What's the theme of the year? What's our identity shift? And what are the 12-month targets? We have a tool called our execution catalyst that allows you to go from year and then into quarter. So we do these separately so we could separate our thinking for once we have the 3 years. What do I want to do in the next 12 months? That would be the biggest, most important things to do so that my 3-year future can be real. And so we define the 12-month targets from the focus catalyst. Once that's defined, on the next page of the execution catalyst, then we decide based on where we want to be in 12 months, constraints, projects, personal and professional, things you want to hand off, delegate. What are we going to do this quarter so that 12 months from now, we achieve everything we want to do for the year? I'm going to unpack these in a future video, but I'm just going over this high level. Then this other exercise, which I'll call this a little bit more miscellaneous, but I wanted to include it here because before we start talking weekly and daily execution, there's going to be things that pop up every week or really every month that are just like, oh, I have to do that thing, or I need to be reminded, or one day or someday I'm going to do this thing. I like doing a mind dump periodically. Sometimes it's weekly, sometimes it's bi-weekly. And it's like just a running list of things that are not like the most crucial things, but things that I want to get out of my head and things that I want to put somewhere. Our brain is not designed for constant storage so that we could access it at any given moment. In fact, it's designed to think of ideas, but then to forget it, right? Because we're just like thinking about lots of things. And so a mind dump is tasks that pop up. I need to order a replacement doorknob. I need to respond to somebody that I'm waiting for, or it could be anything. That's what the mind dump tool is. I'll have a separate video on that. Then we have a execution catalyst for weekly into daily, where we're going to look at quarterly targets and decide, what are we going to do this week? We're going to look at our mind dump and decide, what are we going to do this week that is something we'd like to get done this week? And so from the weekly, we decide based on the quarter, what do we want to do? And then based on the weekly, you guessed it, what are we going to do today? So if you're doing it on a Monday, you define what you're going to do today. If you're doing it, some people like to do it the day before. So like a Sunday, what is Monday going to look like? Some people may like planning the entire week out. That's something you could absolutely try. It's once you get to the granular level, different people are wired in different ways, right? So you may have a planner, you may have a system for executing your day-to-day tasks of what you're going to be executing. I'm not saying you have to use every single tool as your holy grail. But what I am trying to help you with is taking where you want to be and how to think about it on a weekly level, and ultimately how to trickle that down to your daily level. No more random days, no more wondering if what you're doing actually matters. Every action, it traces back to a target. Every target traces back to the future that you already wrote down in your future news story. And so that's the system. In the next few videos, I'm going to break it down each tool one by one so that you start using them. And we're going to dive right in. I'll see you there.